The music was soft, almost too gentle for the weight in my chest. Laughter floated through the wedding hall, glasses clinked, and everyone kept saying how perfect this day was. I smiled when they looked at me. I always smiled. That's what people expected from me. Quiet pride, calm joy, no questions asked. But my heart didn't feel calm. I sat at the round table near the front, hands folded in my lap, staring at the white flowers. They smelled sweet, almost overwhelming. I told myself to breathe. This was my son's wedding. I should be happy. I was happy, or at least I was trying to be. Then I felt a small hand tug at my sleeve. I turned, and my grandson was standing beside me, eyes wide, lips pressed tight like he was holding back something heavy. He climbed onto my lap without asking. That alone made my stomach twist. He was never clingy, never scared. He leaned close, so close I could feel his breath on my ear. "Grandma," he whispered. His voice wasn't playful. It wasn't curious. It was scared. Before I could answer, he pressed his hand against my shoulder, gripping like he might fall if he let go. "When Daddy stands up," he whispered. "Slower now. You have to look under the table." My smile stayed frozen on my face, like it had been painted there. I didn't move. I didn't blink. Around us, people laughed louder, unaware that my whole world had just shifted. I pulled back slightly and looked at him, searching his face for a joke. There was none. His eyes were shiny, not with tears, but with fear. The kind of fear children shouldn't carry. "Why?" I whispered back. He shook his head quickly. "I'm not supposed to say." My heart began to pound so hard I was sure he could hear it. I felt suddenly cold, even though the room was warm. I wrapped my arms around him, holding him close, trying to steady both of us. On the other side of the room, my son laughed with guests, confident, relaxed, completely unaware of the storm forming just feet away. The music swelled, chairs scraped as people prepared for speeches, and I sat there holding my grandson, knowing one simple look under that table was about to change everything. I believed about this family. I didn't know what I would find, but I knew one thing for sure. Children don't whisper warnings unless something is very, very wrong. When my son stood up to greet the guests, the room filled with polite applause. Glasses clinked. Laughter rose and fell like gentle waves. I tried to clap too, but my hands betrayed me. They trembled in my lap, thin fingers pressed together as if holding back a storm. I told myself it was nothing. Weddings are emotional. Mothers always feel too much. But then I felt it again, that strange pull in my chest, the quiet warning that something was wrong. Eli shifted beside me. He didn't smile like the other children. His small shoulders were stiff, his eyes fixed on the tablecloth as if it held a secret. When he leaned closer, his breath brushed my ear. "Grandma," he whispered, voice shaking. I didn't mean to see it. Before I could ask what he meant, my son laughed loudly across the room, charming the guests the way he always had. Everyone adored him. Everyone believed in him. Everyone, except the truth. Slowly, carefully, I bent down. My knees protested as I lowered myself, the sounds of the wedding fading into a dull echo. The world narrowed to shadows and white linen swaying just inches from my face. And then I saw it. Taped beneath the table was a small velvet box. It was cracked open, the tape peeling, as if someone had hidden it in a hurry. My breath caught painfully in my throat as I reached out and pulled it free. Inside lay a woman's engagement ring, simple, elegant, unmistakably loved. It was not the ring his bride wore. My heart began to pound so loudly I was sure someone could hear it. As if that weren't enough, something else slipped out from beneath the box and landed softly on the floor. A folded note. I opened it with shaking hands. The letters were uneven, pressed too hard in places, too light in others. A child's handwriting. Daddy said don't tell, but lying makes people cry. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. In that moment, the music above me sounded cruel, joyful, blind. My chest tightened with a pain I hadn't felt in years, not grief, not anger, but a deep, aching disappointment. I stayed there under the table far longer than I should have. Long enough to understand that this wedding was built on silence. Long enough to know my grandson had been carrying a burden no child ever should. When I finally straightened, the room looked the same, but nothing was. I found him near the edge of the garden, where the string lights glowed softly and the music sounded distant, almost unreal. Guests laughed behind us, unaware that everything I believed about my son was unraveling with every step. I took toward him. He turned when he saw me. His smile appeared out of habit, then slowly faded when he looked into my eyes. "Mom, what's wrong?" he asked. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse him. I simply held out the velvet box and the folded note. My hands were steady now. My heart was not. His face drained of color. For a long moment, he said nothing. The garden lights reflected in his eyes, and I saw something I hadn't seen since he was a boy. Fear. Real fear, not of consequences, but of being seen. Where did you find that? He whispered. Under the table, I replied. Where a child had to hide it. His shoulders collapsed. He turned away, pressing his palms into his eyes as if he could erase what was coming. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked. There was someone else, he said. Months ago, before this wedding, the words fell between us like stones. He told me everything. How he had proposed to another woman in a moment of certainty he mistook for love. How she had believed him, planned a future, trusted his promises. Then came the phone call he never expected. She was pregnant. I panicked, he said, tears spilling freely now. I didn't know how to fix it, so I walked away. My chest tightened. And the ring? I asked, though I already knew. It was hers, he admitted. I couldn't throw it away. I didn't know where to put it. So you hid it? I said softly. And your son heard everything. He nodded. Eli was in the hallway. I didn't think he understood. I stepped closer, my voice trembling with both love and disappointment. My son, I said through tears, you didn't just abandon a woman. You taught your child to hide the truth instead of living it. The wedding music swelled behind us, joyful and cruel all at once. Guests clapped as if celebrating something pure. But inside me, something broke. I had raised a man who knew right from wrong. Yet tonight, it was a 7-year-old boy who had shown more courage than his father. And I knew then, this truth would not stay buried. The officiant cleared his throat at the front of the hall, confused by the sudden pause. The music softened, uncertain, like it too sensed something was wrong. Conversations hushed. Dozens of eyes turned forward, waiting. I felt the weight of the moment settle on my shoulders. I could have shouted. I could have exposed everything right there, letting the truth crash down like glass. But anger was not what this moment needed. It never was. I reached for Eli's small hand. He looked up at me, his eyes wide, searching my face for permission to be brave. His fingers were warm, trusting. That trust steadied me more than anything else could have. I stood. The room grew still. My son looked at me from across the aisle, his face tight with fear. I met his gaze, not with judgment, but with something heavier. Truth. Truth always finds its way, I said softly. My voice didn't shake. It didn't need to. I didn't explain. I didn't accuse. I simply squeezed my grandson's hand and sat back down. That was all it took. The ceremony never truly resumed. Whispers spread. Faces changed. The joy in the room thinned, stretched too tight to hold. Before the final vows were spoken, the officiant announced a delay, then an end. That night, the wedding hall emptied early. Flowers remained untouched. Cake went uneaten. A celebration built on silence could not stand. Weeks passed. My son came to my door one evening, eyes tired, shoulders lower than I had ever seen them. He told me he had found the woman he left behind. He didn't make excuses. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He chose responsibility over comfort. It wasn't easy. It wasn't neat. But it was honest. And Eli watched everything. He learned that adults can be wrong and still choose to make it right. He learned that courage doesn't come from volume, but from truth. And that even the smallest voice, when guided by honesty, can stop the biggest lie. At 7 years old, my grandson taught us all a lesson I will carry forever. Love survives secrets, but integrity survives everything.